Jury selection begins today in the trial of three white men accused of shooting and killing 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery, a black man, while he was out running last year. After finding an impartial jury for this high-profile case, finding one could be challenging. Hundreds of potential jurors are expected to show up at the courthouse today. Omar Villafranca is in Brunswick, Georgia, with the latest on this. Omar, no doubt the nation will be transfixed on this trial because the case caught the attention of the country and contributed to the protests that we saw in the streets over, injustice, racial injustice, policing in this country. I'm wondering, what is the scene like today as the jury selection process begins there?
Let me paint a little bit of a picture here for you, Anne-Marie. Right now, it's quiet. This is the jury selection process. On the outside, it's relatively calm, but in the courthouse, it's going to be busy. They're expecting 600 people who are summoned to end up showing up here today to start this process. 1,000 people were actually summoned to try to pick this jury. So it could be a very busy day here, obviously. When it comes to security, this is a high-profile case, as you mentioned. There will be some roads that will be blocked off around the Glynn County Courthouse. We have seen a heavy police presence. We have seen dogs out here sniffing all the gear while we're all getting ready. So there's a heavy police presence, and they're expecting a lot of action in the courtroom today.
That seems like an awful lot of people who have been called to jury duty. Is that because there's a concern that it would be very difficult to find an impartial juror because this case is such a high-profile case?
Well, obviously they want a big pool to choose from. It doesn't mean that all 1,000 will be brought in or brought before a judge. They may reach their 12 way before that, 12 and the 4 alternates, and then push them to the side. But interesting, talking to Arbery family attorney Lee Merritt, he was saying, they need that pool so they can draw. But he was also telling people, this is a community that's pretty diverse. That he's expecting the defense to try to dismiss some black jurors simply for being black. That's his opinion, his legal opinion. But he says he wants to see a diverse jury pool and a diverse jury that's finally picked. Of course, that's a process that could take up to 2 weeks from what we're hearing.
Ew, wow. Okay, so speaking of, hopes for the outcome, Ahmaud Arbery's mom was on CBS Mornings just moments ago, in fact. Gayle King asked her about her hopes for the jury selection. I want to play some of that sound, Omar.
I have my concerns, being that the jurors will be picked from this community. There has been lots of miscommunications in the beginning on what happened on that day, but I'm hopefully that we'll get the right people in the right place to make the right decision.
I hope you could hear what she was sort of saying about her hopes for the jury. Obviously, the right people in the right place and people from the community. I guess to just get your take on what you're hearing from her and whether or not that's something you're hearing from others in the community.
And that was a delicate question, too. She has to toe the line there, talking to her attorney, her family attorney in the civil case, Lee Merritt, because they don't want that particular answer to be brought up by the defense to be used against the prosecution in the criminal case. So, her answer was something that, it's not going to be used, they're hoping is not going to be used against her in the process, and something that Lee Merritt has said. He wants, and she wants, this jury selection to basically reflect what this community looks like. And it is a diverse community here in Southeast Georgia.
The thing about this case is from the moment of the incident throughout the investigation, there have been conflicts and inconsistencies and concerns about those involved. The investigation has been marred with conflicts. Former Brunswick District Attorney Jackie Johnson has been charged with misconduct for interfering with police at the scene of the shooting. Several prosecutors have had to recuse themselves from the case. How might all of this affect the trial?
Well, it's going to be brought up, but it'll also be separate trials. As you mentioned, Jackie Johnson, the former DA, was indicted. There are so many layers to this that Hollywood couldn't have come up with a better script, because this is real life And there's a lot of twists and turns. We learned from the GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, when they were giving their information out, that Gregory McMichael at one point worked for the district attorney, Jackie Johnson. That raised a bunch of questions on, is there a conflict of interest there? Wanda Cooper Jones told us that during the course of this investigation, when there was no charges, in February when her son was killed, she found a connection. Then it went to a second DA. She found out another connection, turned around and brought that up, and that forced the second DA to basically recuse himself from the case. So there's a lot of twists in this. How it's brought up in this particular case is going to be interesting to watch, but it has absolutely spurred several cases, and it has people asking questions about what they call the good old boy network down here in Southeast Georgia. And Lee Merritt has said that the country is watching this because it's going to be a reflection on race relations in the South, because this is not a police officer and a black man. This is a community member who's white versus a black man. Curious to see how that's going to play out, and that's what a lot of people are watching to see. Because keep in mind, this happened before George Floyd's case in Minnesota, and it was the top headline, and then the George Floyd case broke, and that it shifted to that. This is now, we're finally seeing the rubber meet the road here.
Yeah, definitely. You know, just I thought when you brought up the good old boy networks and all the sort of connections that people have, I wonder if there was any discussion about moving the trial just out of the area completely.
Now, here's what's interesting. I talked to couple of attorneys before the gag order was put in place, so I want to go ahead and say that so we don't think we're doing anything wrong here. But I had Kevin Goff tell me, I don't want it out of Brunswick. I want it in Brunswick. There was talk of moving it to possibly Cobb County, and he said, no, I want it here. They think that if they get a proper jury to their liking, that they may be able to have a decision in their favor. So interesting. It's, like I said, this jury selection, a lot of times it's boring, but it's important, very important, because once we see what those 12 jurors and the 4 alternates look like, we may have an idea of where this case may be going.
Yeah, it's definitely key, and I know here at CBSN we're going to be sort of following things every step of the way. Omar, really appreciate you spending some time with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne Marie.